Shalom. I'm Dr. Benjamin Mann, the Chief Planning Officer at the Jewish Federation of Greater Metro West New Jersey, and I want to thank you all for joining us today. Even as our hearts continue to be with our friends, family, and our partnership communities in Israel, as they mourn from the evil attack of October 7th and fight back to defend themselves, we know that the attack on Israel and the Jewish people is also impacting us here in New Jersey. The Jewish community's sense of safety has been shaken, and we see this playing out in especially stark ways on college and university campuses. We've heard the reports from campus, in the news, and from our children who are students. In university classrooms, some professors continue to spread malicious falsities that delegitimize Israel and deny the Jewish people's right to self-determination and security. And worse, they blame the victims for the inhumane and murderous attacks of October 7th. On college greens and campus quads, some student groups spread messages of hate, repeating the chants of terrorists, such as "from the river to the sea," a terrifying euphemism for what Hamas says more directly, their intent to rid the land of all Jews. And university administrators permit this deathly rhetoric. In addition, our college kids, as we know, do so much of their living and communicating online, where anonymous voices of hate make threats against all Jews. All of this has come together to heighten what was an already precarious space for Jewish students on campus. We find Jewish students facing a climate of psychological and physical intimidation, and on many college campuses, Jewish students are terrified. To learn more about Jewish life on campus at this moment, we've asked a panel of students and professionals to share their perspectives today. First, we'll hear from 3 Jewish students about their experience of life on campus. Then we will invite 3 Jewish professionals who work to support Jewish students to tell us about the work they are doing. And at the end, we'll have the opportunity to ask any of our panelists questions. Please feel free to submit your questions through the Q&A function of the webinar. So let's start with the students who have joined us. Naomi Butler is a student at Rutgers in New Brunswick. Naomi is a Hillel peer intern and engager serving Rutgers Cook campus. Parker Lewin is a law student at Rutgers Newark. Rutgers Newark is a campus located right here in Greater Metro West, where Jewish students have faced an ongoing climate of anti-Semitism. And Benji Meppen is a student at NYU, where he is active in the pro-Israel community. Thank you, Naomi, Parker, and Benji, for being here with us today. Naomi, maybe you can start us off, please. What has it been like for you as a Jewish student over these past few weeks?
Hi, okay, so my name is Naomi Butler, and I'm a student at Rutgers, New Brunswick. I'm studying sport management. And on campus, I wouldn't necessarily say that it's felt extremely dangerous. However, I felt extremely uncomfortable and isolated by the situation. More specifically, I think people aren't really talking about the effects that it's having within extracurriculars. So within clubs that are happening outside of class and outside of general spaces like the library, even though inside of spaces like the library, it has been extremely uncomfortable as well, where you're sitting and you're doing work and you look out the window and there's a Palestinian flag waving and you feel, oh, I can't even sit in this space and do my work. I have to get up and leave. But more specifically, during an extracurricular, where I play on the club basketball team here, and there are 2 instances that come to my mind where I've been friends with someone on the team for over 2.5 years. And over the past 3 weeks, there's just been such a divide because she's been posting threatening things that are very clearly anti-Israel. And I feel as if it's extremely uncomfortable and hard to be in the same space as her. And it's a terrible feeling to not feel comfortable in my own extracurricular space where I go to remove myself from school. And as well as someone who works at the front desk in the gym, like in the rec center, who I've also seen running Palestinian bake sales on College Avenue here, and that makes me extremely uncomfortable. And then I also want to just touch on the fact that SJP is extremely active here on campus, whereas sometimes Rutgers, New Brunswick, I don't think that we're getting as much attention with SJP as other campuses, because thank God it's bad, but it's not as bad as we've seen on other campuses. However, there have been violent chalkings, there have been things written on the floor that are just horrendous to walk by and see people walking by and looking at them and wondering what that means and stuff like that. And I think that Rutgers hasn't classified SJP as violent and as threatening as they are. And I think that that overall has been an issue on campus. Today, right now, they're having a rally outside where they posted chants describing that Hillel staff shouldn't be compensated, and that is a safe place for Jewish students on campus. So what does that mean for students if staff isn't going to be compensated? They also vouched for the cancellation and extermination of Birthright, the program that sends students to Israel for 10 days on college campuses. So overall, things have just been extremely isolating and uncomfortable, and I've just been extra vigilant.
Thank you, Naomi. Thanks for sharing those reflections, and I'm sorry to hear how difficult it's been. To clarify, SJP stands for Students for Justice in Palestine, and it is a national organization of student groups on campuses. So not only at Rutgers, but as Naomi mentioned, in many other places as well. Parker, maybe you can share what it's been like at Rutgers Law School.
Yes, hey everyone, my name is Parker. I'm a second-year law student at Rutgers Newark on the Newark campus. Things have been, comparatively speaking, to the rest of the universities, calm. And I kind of use that term loosely because we have our own issue, like in terms of what we've seen on other campuses. It's been okay. We have organizations kind of putting out statements. Actually, one just sent out last night in solidarity. There's been students who, you know, we're kind of outnumbered is kind of the feeling that I kind of have. There is a loud presence of people who put out a lot of information that honestly isn't entirely true in and of itself. There's a huge rallying behind it. Like Naomi was saying, now have an SJP at the wall. It's been a little interesting watching that develop. I understand there was an SJP on the undergrad at Newark Fest, but at the school is a new development, and they wanted to do it's a thing where they wanted to do a bake sale. The bake sale was kind of for themselves, not relating to what happened in the Middle East. The timing was a little weird, so they actually stopping the bake sale because it just seemed right. So things have just been weird. Personally, it's been very stressful because not seeing a lot of these things and seeing other campuses, you know, who knows what's going to end up happening at the Rutgers Newark campus. And I see a lot of people who it's as I mentioned before, very outgoing in that feeling, where seeing some of the things that people know are experiencing or things that I know of people saying, it's been a very, very stressful and very interesting experience.
Thanks, Parker. Thanks for giving us that view. And again, sorry to hear about the stress. That's, you know, it's very concerning to us in the Jewish community as well. Let's turn to Benji, who is a student at NYU, not in New Jersey, but not too far away from us in New York City. Benji, what's the view like from NYU's campus?
Hi, everyone. I'm Benji. I'm a sophomore at NYU. And it's been different. It's kind of everybody I've told this week that I go to NYU, it's kind of like I'm at a shiva. They go, oh, I'm so sorry that you're at NYU. And it's been tough. It's been a hard couple weeks here. I'm sure everybody's seen the countless news stories. I feel like NYU and Columbia and Harvard and Stanford have all kind of been in the headlines as the point schools for anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism. And unfortunately, that's pretty true to an extent. Over the past couple of weeks, there was the large situation with the Student Bar Association at NYU's law school, a lady named Raina Workman, who unfortunately posted a very long newsletter to the entire legal community, or the graduate legal community, saying, you know, I condemn Israeli colonists and was being incredibly anti-Semitic and incredibly anti-Israel. So myself and a few other undergraduate students marched down to the law school campus here on West 4th Street in Manhattan and talked with the dean of the law school and said this is unacceptable, and got Raina Workman removed from her position as the head of the Student Bar Association, which was great, but unfortunately that's only one of a few incidents that's occurred. The unfortunate part about going to a school like NYU is that we don't really have a quad and we don't really have a campus. So the jurisdiction of the school doesn't really stretch to every corner and every block that students walk on. Between where I live in my apartment and the library, or where I have my classes, there are, tens and tens of streets that are not under the watch of NYU's campus security and that are totally fair game for anti-Semitism and hate crimes and hate speech, including Washington Square Park down here in Lower Manhattan, where a lot of rallies have taken place and a lot of horrible signage has been posted. But I do want to say this to NYU's credit. I personally had a meeting with the president of NYU, Linda Mills, who's been incredibly helpful in dealing with the anti-Semitism on campus. Her parents are actually survivors of the Holocaust, so she understands firsthand what anti-Semitism is and what it looks like. But the unfortunate part is that the president of the university, NYU themselves, can only do so much to dispel hatred and anti-Semitism in New York. This is a ginormous city with a ton of viewpoints. And as a student here, I've felt unsafe, not at NYU, but as a resident of New York City. I felt unsafe walking home from Shabbat in groups. I felt unsafe coming here to the Bronfman Center at Hillel in groups because of the hatred of New York City, not because of the hatred at NYU. The school itself has done an incredible job, including the Dean of Students, Rafael Rodriguez, who's met with myself and other members of the Hillel Executive Board many times to ensure us that they do have our backs and that they are watching Jewish students. But that does not change the fact that there is a ton of anti-Semitism in the area where we call home. As a student, I felt angered and I felt saddened, but not at the lack of response by the university, just at the amount of anti-Semitism that exists here, in which there is a ton. To be incredibly clear, there's a ton. There are kidnap signs being ripped down on every street corner I walked by. There are people with very hateful signs in the park where I have to walk through every day to get to class. It's very real and it's very much in your face. You could ask any NYU student, there is anti-Semitism that they have seen with their own eyes in the past 2 weeks. There are very few people who have not bared witness to these unfortunate things that you're seeing on CNN and MSNBC and Fox News, because they're real and they do exist. But to the school's credit, they've done a good job of being able to support us and make us feel heard. But they can only do so much because we don't really have a campus. So all in all, it's been a frustrating couple weeks. But I do think that the Jewish community here at NYU specifically has gotten stronger. We've had more people in our Hillel building. We've had more people come to Shabbat. And even after this is over, we will continue to be stronger because, no matter how much hate there is in Lower Manhattan, there will still be a strong Jewish community here at NYU.
Thank you, Benji. It is great to hear about the Jewish life coming together on campus and how the Jewish students are supporting each other. And I really appreciate your points that maybe some of our professionals in a moment can address about both the larger context of anti-Semitism in the surrounding communities that our colleges and universities are located in, and also what we can expect and what we can't expect from the university administrators in terms of what they're able to do in response to this rising anti-Semitism. So now I'm going to thank all Naomi and Parker and Benji for these important reflections. Please stick with us so that we can include you in the Q&A a little bit later in the program. And we're going to turn to our panel of Jewish professionals. So first we have Rebecca Adelson, who's the director of the Hillel of Greater Metro West. The Hillel of Greater Metro West is a project of Federation that serves 6 campuses in our area: Montclair State University, New Jersey Institute of Technology, Seton Hall University, Fairleigh Dickinson University's Florham campus, Kean University, and Rutgers University's Newark campus. Welcome, Rebecca. Lisa Harris Glass is the Chief Executive Officer of Rutgers Hillel. Rutgers Hillel serves the roughly 6,500 Jewish students at Rutgers New Brunswick campuses and is one of the largest Jewish undergraduate populations in the country. And Linda Scherzer is the director of the Jewish Community Relations Council of Greater Metro West. The JCRC is the advocacy and public affairs arm of Federation, and Linda and her team work to advocate with elected officials and university leadership to protect and support Jewish students on campus. So welcome, Rebecca, Lisa, and Linda. Thank you very much. I'm going to ask you each to chime in on these questions, and also feel free to respond to each other as you hear what each other have to say. So we're going to start with this question. As you hear from these students, both the ones we heard on the panel today and also in your own work on campus, what's your priority in supporting Jewish students on campus right now? Let's start with Rebecca first.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My priority always has not changed is student safety. It's just become more necessary for me to be focusing my mind on that work right now. I don't think that we're so concerned about the physical safety of our students, luckily, at our campuses. There are moments where that's an exception, I think, but we work really closely with Federation security team, with local police departments and campus police departments to ensure that all of our students are physically safe. And I think there's this other idea of mental safety and our students feeling like they are safe to share their thoughts, to have a space to come and be with like-minded Jews or allies. And that's really been my priority in the last 3 weeks, making sure that our students still feel that they have community that they can turn to when they're not feeling safe.
Thanks, Lisa.
So thank you for inviting me. I think this is a really important conversation that we're having, and I appreciate my appreciation to Greater Metro West Federation for making this happen. My priority, like Rebecca, in the last several weeks, we're always serving as in addition to being community, right? A place for community on campus, but a place for that feels like home on campus, and all the things that home can mean, right? Physical safety, psychological safety has become even more important. We're blessed to have social workers on staff at our Hillel, and so making ourselves available for students as they're sort of navigating their way through this really difficult time on campus, and you cannot be on College Avenue and not encounter something that, as Naomi alluded to, almost stops you in your track, because there's trucking events happening. We're also serving as a resource for students as they seek to do proactive things regarding the war. So we've had 2 vigils. There's another big event planned for this Thursday where we're going to be setting the Shabbat table for the hostages. There's been bake sales and collections of things, and we're serving as a base for that. I might also mention, I'll talk a little more about it later, though, one of the things that we're also behind the scenes trying to affect things for the better within the system here at the university. Which requires quite a bit of diplomacy, as you can imagine. There's a lot of opinions, people who really want us to be deploying, and I'm using this on purpose, deploying our students to get loud, to protest, to be on bullhorns. And we have to respectfully explain they're actually not an army that we deploy with our orders, right? We are a student-driven organization, and we're here to make happen those things that the students happen. We also have to be diplomatic because we are actually guests here at Rutgers, right? We're not officially part of the university. We own our land, our building, and so diplomacy is the way to go, as frustrating as that has been.
Thanks, Lisa. Linda, what are the priorities? I mean, I think related to Lisa's last point, your work is mostly about that sort of advocacy.
Thanks, Ben. Well, I'd like to start actually by expressing gratitude. Gratitude to our incredible professionals, our Hillel professionals, and to our students, Benji, Naomi, and Parker, who are 3 of the thousands and thousands of Jewish students across this country, many of them the children and grandchildren of those who are watching here today, who are very often, who are on the front lines. The college campuses for the last 20 years have been the front lines, places of toxic anti-Israel activity, a culture that has been growing for the last 20 years that I've been an observer and very engaged in this. And I'm really grateful to those students who find the time, because after all, we send our students to college to pursue their academic studies, to pursue their professional lives and social lives, and that they have to be dealing with this right now really grieves all of us. So first, gratitude, and then I'll talk about the ways that our priority, of course, as Rebecca and Lisa articulated, is our first priority is safety. So from a JCRC perspective, we are here to support our professionals on campus. We are people with connections into the Attorney General's office, to the governor's office, to the offices of university presidents. And we are working the phones every day, because every single day we are getting calls about another quote unquote fire, or, deplorable situation that's happening that sometimes rises to a level of potential criminal activity, sometimes is a civil rights violation. And so we are speaking with the director of civil rights in the Attorney General's office. We are speaking to the senior counsel for community engagement in the Attorney General's office. There are investigations that are being launched every day, and we're the connector for that. We're leveraging our relationships in those offices as well as among our lay leadership. Who has the relationships with the people who are going to make this a priority? This is the best way that we can help support our students and our professionals, and our parents and grandparents we want everyone to know that we are on this every single day.
Thanks, Linda. What's the challenges that you are seeing? I mean, we heard the students articulate their experience of isolation, of worry, of having this in front of them when they're just trying to go about their lives of going to class. Lisa, why don't you start? What are the biggest challenges that you're seeing right now?
Wow, thanks for the question. And there's a lot. I think diplomacy is a challenge. I know a lot of you who have joined this call today. You all know me. I've been the Jewish world here for 30 plus years. I tend to be a frank person. And I see Linda's giggling because that may actually, be totally fitting. And you find yourself not being able to say, I think the truth of what's really happening. So I'm going to give you an example. The university hides, in my opinion, behind free speech and allows tenured professors to teach fiction as fact, which just foments hatred and serves to justify anything done by the Palestinians, and it demonizes Israel and Israelis and Jews. I'd like you to let that sink in. There is a generation of students who have been raised being taught a history that they know to be true. And I have found no room to have an academic conversation around you know your history. I know my history. Those histories are different. Where do we go from here? There is no willingness to actually engage academically over the issue. In addition to that, we had 2 incidents of litter. On Friday, when the first staffer arrived at the building, there were 2 sets of bullets found in front of the building. Naomi, I don't even know if you know this. I'm looking at Naomi. Naomi's like, what? They were determined to not be real, but they were left in 2 different spots on our lawn. Now, I don't know if you've been to College Avenue. It's kind of long. And the only 2 places there were bullets were on Hillel's property. But it's litter. And the next morning, when Rabbi Esther Reed was the first to arrive, came in the building, there was a large gas canister. Looked like a propane tank. I'm told it's not a propane tank, but you get the drift, leaning against the front wall of our building. More litter. I don't believe in coincidences. I don't feel supported. I worry that something terrible is going to have to happen before a stop is put to what's happening.
Lisa, just to clarify, it's the university administration and law enforcement officials that have told us that this is litter and not something that you think they're taking sufficiently seriously?
So I'm using the word litter because they did not find that these incidents met the threshold for bias. So therefore it's litter.
Right. And in the current context of the climate, it's very frightening to you and your community of students and faculty.
I have to say, this felt very direct.
Yeah.
It was like, look, these students, I feel like they're all mine, right? I have a college age student at another campus, at one of Rebecca's campuses, in fact. And I feel responsible for every one of them. And this felt like they did this to my home.
Yeah. Rebecca, let's turn to you. What are the challenges you're facing right now, to either similar to Lisa or to build on?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to build on what Lisa said. I think this is probably the first time where I've felt almost grateful that I don't have a building on any of my campuses, primarily because it's a target. And I can't imagine what these schools around the country are going through when every day they walk into their doors and they're not sure of what they're going to be met with. You go to open up the building and there's a swastika drawn on the side of the building, or there's bullets on the front lawn. Like that's terrifying. So that's not a challenge that we face, but it's a very real reality that is very close to us. But I will build on the idea that administration doesn't feel that administration is behind us right now. It feels like everyone is trying to do right by everyone and not focus on what's actually happening. So administration will skirt around condemning Hamas, or skirt around the idea that there's possibly anti-Semitism on their campus because they're so worried about offending the other group of people involved in this conflict, right? And I understand that. I understand that they are serving and representing everyone on campus, but at a certain point you have to call it what it is and take a stand against what's going on these campuses, which is blatant anti-Semitism. So I would say that that's absolutely something that we are dealing with on really all 6 of our campuses. I think another challenge is just, and I say this from a point of, I guess, recognizing our not flaws as an organization, but where we fall short is not having the time to dedicate to all of these different campuses that need our time. I spend hours on each campus, and there are only so many hours in the day. So, I think that's another challenge that we're facing, is lack of time to do the work that we are normally doing for our students, and then this other job that seems to have been created overnight.
Yeah.
And I think all Hillel professionals around the country are feeling that. And it's not an easy fix. It's not like everyone can just become a Hillel professional. That would be lovely. And the other, I think, challenge on our campuses is that students are now very divided. Jewish students are very divided because, let's face it, I mean, I saw a question pop up in the Q&A about Jewish Voices for Peace, and I'm going to bring it up now because it's relevant. Jews support a wide range of organizations and beliefs, and they're all valid in one way or another because we are all entitled to our own opinions and areas that we support. But what we're seeing, at least on some of our campuses, is that even our student boards are divided. So we'll have a couple of board members who feel very strongly about holding a pro-Israel rally and using their voices to show that we're here and we're proud to be Jewish and you can't silence us. And then there's this other group of Jewish students who are like, listen, we stand with Israel, but we don't want to have targets on our backs when we go to school tomorrow and when we walk into class. So we see students that are wanting to actively engage in activism for Israel, and then another group of students that really are fearful of doing that and what those active students are kind of doing for the entire Jewish community. And it's a
Yeah.
real challenge, and it's hard to address that.
Thanks, Rebecca, and
So
thanks.
Ben, you said that we could talk.
Yeah, chime
Is
in,
it
Lisa.
okay?
Then
Can I
we'll get
try
to,
it?
then
I
we'll get
wanted
to
to chime
Linda.
into something you said earlier, Lisa. So before
I know, Linda, you go first.
just before I lose the thought, you're pointing to the misinformation, the outright lies. I mean, there is an avalanche, an absolute avalanche of factual lies, omissions, historical inaccuracies, accusations of apartheid applied to Israel, the sheer ignorance of what's going on. And we know what we've heard outside the classroom, right? We heard a Cornell University professor stand up publicly and proudly in a group of students declaring that he was exhilarated by what happened on October 7th. What we don't know, what we only hear about through certain channels, is what's happening inside the classroom. And the Mideast professors or the psychology professors who are, either giving their opinions or delivering history lessons, and that are just so deplorable and so wrong. And this is going on, on far too many campuses across this country. And I do want to point out that while we're only really aware of this now, there has been a steady drip of this over the last 20 years. This didn't just happen. It may have exploded in our faces because of this unprecedented, horrific act, and what has unfolded in the days since October 7th. But on most university campuses in this country, there have been chapters of SJP, Students for Justice in Palestine. There has been, again, as this toxic culture that has planted itself, these ideas, these poisonous ideas that Israel and only Israel is to blame for the paralysis in the peace process, or that Israel has somehow, Israel is the original sin. Israel has colonized a people for the last 75 years. The ignorance and the intellectual laziness amongst college students in understanding even the last 30 years of history is absolutely astonishing and astounding. And what we're seeing now, don't forget that the people who are populating the halls of Congress, I'm not even talking about the members of Congress, I'm talking about their staff, the people who are, being employed at mainstream media organizations, who are being employed actually in all sectors of society, are graduates of these universities, are people who have been exposed to these ideas. And I think that is our greatest challenge, is trying to, I don't know, set the record straight, but to impose a certain degree of balance and intellectual integrity and honesty and critical thinking that is so absent
Thanks,
in these
Linda.
institutions of higher learning.
Yeah, and you refer back to what Lisa said before in her remarks about the difficulty of opening up a real academic type of conversation about what's really happened and is happening on a university, where you would think that would be the lingua franca. I want to give Lisa 1 minute, only 1 minute, Lisa, to respond to what Rebecca said, and then I want to call on the students back so we can have them for a panel and get to some of the questions that came in the chat. So Lisa.
Thanks so much. I'll speak quickly, not a problem. I'm a Jersey girl. Our motto here is all kinds of Jewish. I started here in July. And when I talked about my hopes and dreams for this campus and these students, it was that Hillel could be a place for all kinds of Jewish, right? Religious, not religious, into Israel, not into Israel, into matzo ball soup, all good, right? All good. And I thought it was important, right? Because of the sort of where the students are all coming from. And let's face it, this generation really only has known a strong Israel. It wasn't like when I was growing up. There were certainly, and that has changed so quickly, that so much of it is about Israel. And what's happening is that students who maybe Israel isn't their jam, they're getting painted with that paintbrush, right? I don't know what's going to happen because of that, right? It's like it's being foisted upon them when that might not have been where they were at. And we had a parents' weekend here a couple weeks ago. It was after the war. It was the weekend after the war started, and I said to these parents, if you'd have told me, I know what my dreams were in July. I know what my dreams were October 6th. The game has changed.
Yeah. And let's bring those students back on. So we'll invite Benji and Parker and Naomi back to the screen with us, because of course it really is about the students. Maybe I'll turn, there are a variety of different types of questions that have come through, but I think I'll turn to questions that I think relate most directly to the students first, which is, Benji and Parker and Naomi, what can we do? What can the adults, as it were? I mean, you're young adults, but what are the older adults in the Jewish community? What can we do to support you, either to protect you emotionally in these unsafe times, and or help you stand up for Israel if that's what you want to do? So, any one of you want to chime in? Yeah, Benji, please.
I think, at least from my perspective as a student here, I'm from California, and my parents are far away from here, and I feel their support through the phone, and I appreciate their support. But there's no parents on campus to tell you go to a rally, stand up for yourself. Don't let that person talk to you that way. Don't let them put their finger in your face. I think just empowering college students, whether it's your children or grandchildren, whoever and telling them now's the time, right? Now's the time to pick up a flag, and if you weren't pro-Israel before, you absolutely need to be now, because nobody else is going to stand up for us if not for ourselves. So I think just empowering any college students that you have in your life and saying, if you go to a really big school or you go to a really small school, if you're in the middle of nowhere or you're in a big metropolitan city, put a flag on your shoulder and go talk to people, go shake hands, and go and be pro-Israel, because there will be no more time, I hope, in my college career that I will need to be as active as I am now. I feel like I'm a student, yes, and I have a job being in the classroom, but I need to be an activist. And when I'm not in front of my computer writing an essay, there's a job that I need to do, because there's only so many people like myself, and there's only so many people like us who are willing to be pros or advocates on campus. So I would definitely say empowering the college students in your life to go and to be outwardly pro-Israel in any way that they can, wherever they are, is so important.
Parker, Naomi, do you want to chime in?
I can add to that,
Yeah.
to what Benji said. So me and my roommates were actually just discussing this, what we can do and what we would want. So we were talking about how there's been kind of a divide with Jewish staff on campus and Jewish students on campus, where Jewish students, I think, are aching in the background to do stuff and they just don't know what to do. And I think that Jewish professionals on campus are doing things and students are just unaware of what they're doing. And I think that it would be really, really helpful if those professionals and that staff would communicate with students what they can do to jumpstart what they're already doing, or to push forward, and to give them kind of a list of things to do that would help them in their endeavors, I think. Because I think Jewish students don't physically know what to do, but they want.
Naomi, we should talk about this after this.
Yeah, we should.
I was going to say, Ben, can I actually piggyback off that real quick?
Yeah.
Something that we just did for our students on Monday evening was we actually had like an open forum, a community gathering on Zoom, where we pulled the blinds back and we told our students what we've been doing and where our efforts have been, and we asked them, what do you need from us? Like, what are we not doing for you that we can be doing? And that proved to be a really helpful conversation. So yeah, Naomi, you're absolutely right. We should be as transparent as we possibly can be with students right now. I think it's really important.
Parker, were you going to add something?
Yeah, I mean, first off, emphasizing both what Naomi and Benji had said. And I think particularly for us at the new campus, where, like I mentioned before, we're just so outnumbered right now. There are just organizations kind of rallying behind this other cause, promoting things that are, very pro-Hamas, the actions that they've done, things students have told other Jewish Jews that, they're for Hamas in this, that their actions were justified. And to make matters worse, they said it to a girl who had just gotten back from Israel, like when all this happened. So it's been a really crazy experience, and seeing that we're outnumbered, I don't know how that could work and what could actually, how we could get that help. We have professors who, even in their personal lives, are kind of spewing this hate. There's one in particular I think of who has on her personal Twitter accounts posting things that, Jews have been downplaying the Holocaust. We've just been kind of milking it for sympathy, and that the attacks in Israel aren't real. And that those bees in South Israel weren't headed, because where are the pictures? Meanwhile, they did post the pictures. So, fine, I get them. So, like I said, we're very outnumbered in that sense. I don't know what the fix is to that, honestly. But that's just how I feel. I think that's how a couple of my other Jewish colleagues feel as well. We're a small group, and we are being drowned out by a lot of organizations and a lot of students who, say things that are honestly pure hate at when you boil it down.
Yeah, thanks, Parker. Yeah, I think that on there are campuses like Rutgers, the New Brunswick campuses, where there are large numbers of Jews, and then there are campuses where Jews are really in the minority, and how to make sure that those voices are heard in all the different types of colleges and universities that our Jewish students are finding themselves. I'm going to ask one more question because we're coming towards the end of our time here. There are a number of questions that I think revolved around the points that Lisa and Linda made about the false histories that have taken hold in university curricula, in classrooms. And I would say that they asked questions in two directions. One was backward looking, right? There have been news reports of monies funding these type of positions, Islamic studies and Arab studies positions on universities, campuses, and did the Jewish community know about this? Did we, Linda, you said this has been taking hold over the decades. Like, did we know, and did we say anything? But then there's the forward-looking questions, which are, what can we do about it? Is there a way that we can push back against these false narratives and say this is actually hate and anti-Semitism, when, like Lisa said, the folks that she's trying to have dialogue with aren't open to that. So I guess I'm going to turn to the professionals, Linda and Lisa and Rebecca, to see what you guys think about those questions.
Well, I saw the question from my dear friend Jay Mayesh, and I will admit I personally didn't have my eye on that ball. I don't I was actually focused on, really for the last 20 years, preparing our high school leaders, Jewish leaders, to confront this activity on college campus and to position them for Jewish leadership on campus. Parker is one of those students, graduates of the program that we run in Greater Metro West. But I do want to refer to one thing, which is that we are not helpless here. There is federal statute, Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which prohibits discrimination based on an individual's race, color, national origin. There are many situations that we are encountering on university campuses where our students are the targets of such discrimination, and we are directing them to the attorneys who are willing to file, students who are willing to file class action suits against universities for not supporting them in these situations. There is federal funding at stake. Here, and things are going to change, and we hope and expect that the leaders in higher education are going to finally recognize that this simply can't it can't continue this way.
Yeah.
It's not going to be a one size fits all for every university, but be assured that our professionals are there making the case every day and pushing back against this kind of misinformation.
Thanks, Linda. I mean, that point about the community relations and advocacy aspect of this, that is so important to be able to make change. Lisa, did you want to add anything to that question?
I will, and I thank you. I have been surprised by how organized the social media campaign has been from the other side. I wish that we had something as organized for deployment. The Students for Justice in Palestine in New Brunswick is really seemingly very organized. I know they have a lot of support from teachers, faculty here. Sorry, not teachers, faculty, professors, Naomi alluded to, the most recent rhetoric that they put out, which they're actually using as we speak, because they're protesting right down the street from us right now. I feel like that would be a really welcome resource. I also think I want to find a historical accounting of the history that isn't generated by either side, like a neutral party that we can put in front of people to maybe have the conversation. I'm so grateful to Linda and all the other folks who are advocating every day. We know they're doing it. We're grateful for it. But make no mistake that this war is playing out on campuses, and we are the front lines. And I would be remiss if I didn't say that the only reason that Hillel is here to work with our students today is because we were here on October 6th.
Yeah.
And so I want to thank the Federation, all the federations for their support of our work, and for those individuals who also support us, even beyond what they give to Federation. We need it.
We're grateful, Lisa, for the work you're doing, and Rebecca and Linda. I want to thank everyone who was on our panel today, to the Jewish professionals for all you're doing for our Jewish students on campus. Special gratitude to the students who joined us today, to Naomi, Parker, and Benji. Please know that the Jewish community cares about you and stands with you. And now I'm pleased to introduce Steve Levy, who's the president of the Jewish Community Foundation of Greater Metro West New Jersey, who's going to wrap up our program. Turning it over to Steve.
Thank you, Ben, and thank you to all the participants. As he said, I'm speaking to you today as the president of the Jewish Community Foundation of Greater Metro West New Jersey, which is the planned giving and endowment arm of our federation. Our focus is on doing everything we can to support our sisters and brothers in Israel, while also meeting needs, the tremendous needs here at home, and building and strengthening our Jewish community for the future. It's heartwarming to see our community coming together in so many ways, in rallies and vigils and prayer services, at learning opportunities like this one, and also through an outpouring of gifts from thousands of donors to assist Israel in this time of tremendous need. Since October 7th, I am so proud to say that our community has raised more than $26 million for the emergency campaign for Israel, with 100% of these dollars going right to Israel to assist victims of terror, support displaced communities, rebuild infrastructure, and to address the unprecedented levels of trauma. Our Federation's campaign is part of a North American Israel emergency campaign effort that has raised more than $550 million to date. Thank you to so many of you who have already supported this critical emergency campaign. At the same time, as you've heard here, we are facing unprecedented levels of anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism across the nation, and right here in Greater Metro West. As you have heard through our Federation's JCRC, our Community Security Program, and our Greater Metro West Hillel, we are there to respond for our students on college campuses and across our community where hatred of Jews rears its ugly head. These vital programs are made possible through the support of Federation's UJA campaign and through targeted gifts from many donors, including some here on this Zoom. So first of all, I want to say thank you to all of you. Often we feel helpless watching the news, but there are things we can do. We can continue to stand up for Israel, continue to speak out against virulent anti-Semitism, and we can give. As we are in our centennial year celebrating the 100th anniversary of our federation, there are some special giving opportunities. One, through the match of the century. Any new or increased gift to UJA this year will be matched 1-for-1 by some very generous donors. Secondly, if you are interested in specifically supporting the efforts to keep our Jewish community safe, fight anti-Semitism, and help build the next generation of young people who will support Israel, there are targeted giving opportunities through Centennial to enable you to do so. Please speak to either Kim Hirsch, our JCF Executive Director, or Rebecca Pollock, Vice President for the campaign, or any members of their team, or me. We would be delighted to discuss this with you. Thank you to each one of you for caring about Israel, for caring about our community at home. Together, we will get through this, I am confident, and we will build a stronger Jewish community for tomorrow.